Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday, December 10th edition of the MMAOB Daily Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Adam Martin, and I'll be taking you guys through the latest in the world of mixed martial arts. Going solo today for the Bellator preview. I'll be previewing tonight's Bellator 254 card. That is tonight, Thursday night. So there's a lot of fights to talk about on that card. There's also been a lot of fight announcements lately, so I'll get through them. We haven't had much time to talk about them on the show lately, so I'll do that. There's some updates to this weekend's UFC 256 card that are definitely worth talking about. And of course, there's some news and notes, like Yoel Romero is still out there in the news for his free agency and some other things that are worth talking about, including some more roster cuts from the UFC. So there is a lot to talk about today. I want to start off by giving a plug to MMAOddsbreaker.com. That, of course, is the home of the podcast. So I want to pull that up here. Give MMAOB some love. So go to the main page, obviously, the podcast right now. But I do want to plug this. There's 3 Cage Warriors cards this week. There's one today, there's one tomorrow, and there's one Saturday. So 3 Cage Warriors Fighting Championships cards, and I'll have opening odds for all those cards. I won't be previewing those cards on today's podcast. That's just way too many fights. That'd be like 50 fights to preview. So it's not possible for me to do that. But definitely check out my opening odds articles for the Cage Warriors fights. Again, 117 is tonight, and then, or I should say today, actually, and then 118 is tomorrow, and then 119 on Saturday. So crazy week for European MMA. If you love Cage Warriors, then, I mean, it's nothing better. They call it the trilogy, 3 events in a row, and lots of titles online as well. So should be pretty good. And Doug Burries actually asked, what time does Cage Warriors prelims start today? That's a good question, Doug. I'll just pull it up on MMA Junkie, because usually they used to show it. I don't know if they do anymore, but let's see what they say here. Cage Warriors, number 17. Don't see it on their website. Let me check here. I do want to know myself, actually. All right. Yeah, I don't know. I'm having a hard time finding it. Let's check Combate Press. They might have the time. Okay, here we go. 3 p.m. There you go, Doug. 3 p.m. Eastern time. That's when the card starts today. So Doug had a question about Cage Warriors. 3 p.m. Eastern time, according to Combate Press. And the main card's at 4 p.m. Eastern time. That's on Fight Pass if you want to watch Cage Warriors. So definitely check that out. Cage Warriors, great promotion. Ian Dean, great matchmaker. Lots of fighters have obviously come to the UFC. So that's what we're talking about. But I do want to start with this. Bellator 254. Got the opening odds here for the card. The odds have shifted a lot since they opened on like Monday. Like, I got to give the odds makers credit. They did get the odds out earlier than usual. I mean, they usually come out the day of or the day before for Bellator. They got them out Monday, which was good to see. And then, of course, I also have my UFC odds. But we talked about UFC 256 on Tuesday. If you missed it, go back and check Tuesday's podcast. It was a good podcast. Let's talk about Bellator 254. So, again, the opening odds are there, but I want to pull out Tapology just because it's a lot easier to go through the fight like that. Let's pull it up here. There, Bellator 254. Doug said thanks. No worries, Doug. I was curious as well. Remember, it's like, what, 5-hour time difference, I think, to England, so 3 p.m. is like 8 o'clock. It's normal start time. All right, Bellator 254. Let's get into this card. And, you know, like most Bellator cards, a lot of these prelims are just, according to the odds makers, mismatches. Man, you know, it's risky to lay this kind of juice on some of these guys. But let's get through this card. Let's start with the first one here. Cameron Lachinov against Shamil Nakiev. And we actually do have odds now. There weren't some originally, but they have them now. Right now, the odds open at Shamil Nakiev minus 500. Cameron Lachinov plus 375, and the odds are a little bit down now, almost half of what they opened at. Plus minus 255 for Nakiev, plus 215 for Lachinov. So let's get into this fight. Cameron Lachinov. Actually, I'll start with the favorite here in Nakiev. Let's go through this. Shamil Nakiev, the Chechen Wolf, 9-0, 25 years old, Berkut FC guy, Russian fighter, obviously Chechen. Let's go through his record here. All right, it's ACB guy. They call him Little Fedor. That's according to the slug up here. It's Little Fedor, which used to be an awesome nickname, I guess. But either way, you look at this guy's record. I mean, it's impressive, man. I mean, 9-0 and a lot of wins in ACB. A lot by decision, though, which you don't love to see. You like to see a guy get finishes, but still, I mean, you look at this resume. He's been fighting as a pro for almost 10 years, and he's undefeated. So there's something to be said about that. I mean, the guy, according to this, the guy's been fighting as a pro since he was 16, which is very possible in Russia. So, I mean, it's time that he is in the UFC. He does have look at this win. These are nice wins. Christos Giagos. I'm not saying Christos is a great fighter, but he was in the UFC for a while. That's a pretty good win. And then Alexander Tiger Sarnovsky, he was a long-time Bellator fighter. That's a nice win too. Again, by split decision. So that's not great, but still he beat them. Let's look at this guy, Cameron Lachinov, 10-2 record, Killer Chem, 30 years old, a little bit older, American fighter, Team Link. So he'd be training with those guys like, I guess like Gonzaga and stuff, right? Over at Team Link. He used to be there. They don't have any fighters listed. Anyways, going through his resume, I mean, I just remember fighting last month against, or 2 months ago against Kyle Kruckberg. That was a fight that a lot of people thought this guy lost, but he pulled off the upset. So, I mean, good for him because he pulled off the upset, but the majority of people I talked to thought he lost that fight. You look through his resume, I mean, the guy's been, again, he's a longtime veteran of the sport too, fighting since 2013. Lost to Eric Spicely, former UFC fighter, but he's been fighting in Bellator mostly since then. Also some other promotions in northeastern United States. Most part, he's been pretty successful. You look at the resume and 8 straight wins now, including the win over Crutchburn. He's got a lot of experience in Bellator too. So, you know, looking at the opening line at minus 500, it was too high. And I could definitely see why there are some people taking a shot on Lachinov here. He's absolutely a live dog for sure. You know, me personally, this is not a fight I'm interested in betting on. There's just not enough information about Naki at this level of the sport. I know he has some good wins in ACB. I get that. But Bellator is a different beast. So we'll see what happens in this fight. It's more, for me, one you can watch. And I kind of can see why people were betting on Lachinov because you look at the run he's been on, the momentum is high. And like whatever Kruckner, I know that he probably lost that fight, guys, but still, like the fact that he did get the judge's decision unanimously is pretty impressive. So he obviously did something right in that fight. I'm still going to go with Nikiev. He seems like a really good prospect, but you know, for me, it's not a fight I'd be willing to risk minus 255 on a guy that I'm not too sure about still. All right, let's go to the next fight. Maurice Jackson against Grant Neal. You thought that line was high, and you look at this one, and right now, okay, so Grant Neal opened at minus 215, Maurice Jackson plus 175. And right now we have Grant Neal at minus 900, Maurice Jackson plus 600. So that's a crazy line. And, you know, for me, again, I just keep telling people, like, you got to be careful with these huge lines in Bellator. We saw a few weeks ago with that Gracie guy that lost. He was like, minus 800, and everyone had him in the parlay and he lost. It does seem like an easy way out sometimes just to parlay a couple big favorites and to get even money or something. And oftentimes it does cash out. But, you know, if you're going to do that, in my opinion, you got to be laying juice on guys that are proven fighters. These guys are very unproven. I honestly, I just can't see how this guy got steamed up to minus 900. Like, what am I missing here? Let's take a look at him. Grant Neal. This isn't Jeff Neal. It's like, are people confused? They think it's Jeff Neal. It's Grant Neal. Anyways, 4-0. He's a Genesis guy, so I mean, he's training with a good camp. And you look at his resume in Bellator so far, 3-0, 4-0 in his career. But like, who's his best win? Hamza Salim. Like, his wins are not great. He has been fighting as an amateur before that, Colorado regional scene and stuff. Like, but again, the level of competition guys. Like, who are these guys? You know. So to me, how is he minus 900? I just don't see it. You know. And for the most part, this is a guy that a lot of people seem to just be throwing in a parlay, and maybe he does win. But to me, it's like, I wouldn't even risk it. You know, look at Maurice Jackson here, 7-2 record. They call him the Hulk. Jackson Wayne guy, so he trains with a good camp too. And you know, I'm not saying Melvin Goulard's an amazing fighter because he's not, and he's definitely up there in age. But that's a better win than anything Neal's ever did. That is a better win on paper. So yeah, I mean, Goulard's is like a shell of his former self, and I don't even know if he's fighting anymore. But still, that's not a bad win to have on your resume. He did lose this guy, Andrew Capel. He's in Bellator as well. That's not a great loss. I don't know, guys. I mean, listen, like, the odds are what they are for a reason. Neal seems to be this prospect that everyone's super high on, and he seems like a good prospect. Like, I'm going to pick him. I'm not going to go crazy here and pick plus 600 dog. I'm just saying, like, how could you lay minus 500 on Neal when you're facing off against a guy like this and Jackson, who does have KO power? And again, Neal is super unproven. 4 fights. Like, I don't know. Again, it's not my style to lay minus 900. I prefer just to look for, you know, low favorites or dogs. Like, that's, to me, the best way to bet. But again, everyone has their own ways of betting. I get that. It's just that I've been doing this for a long time, and you made minus 900 favorites I've seen lose over the years a lot, especially when they're unproven guys. You know, in this case, again, Neal probably does win. I just wouldn't lay that minus 900. All right, next fight, Romero Cotton against Justin Sumpter. This is a pretty good fight, actually. I like this one. Right now, okay, Romero Cotton actually opened as a minus 155 favorite, and right now he's actually minus 245. So he got steamed up a bit, and then Sumpter opened plus 125, and Justin Sumpter right now is plus 205. Let's take a look at these guys. So Romero Cotton, 4-0, wrestling-based fighter, obviously. Been fighting as a pro since 2017, and all his wins and fights coming in Bellator. Hasn't fought in a year, which is definitely something to be concerned about, but you know, 3 of these wins by stoppage. That's pretty nice to see. And he does have the wrestling background, obviously. The layoff concerns me. I don't love that, but, this is, we're seeing right here, he was supposed to fight Sumpter back in March and they canceled card. I think that was the Pitbull card, the first one. So he's been training for this guy for a while, so he should know what to do in this fight, I would assume. Sumpter, I mean, listen, like the guy, he's got some talent, 7-3 record, 31-year-old fighter. He has some talent. That's why he kept getting the shots at Contender Series, because you look through his resume, and he's been Bellator like a few times actually, but some of his wins were really nice coming up, and then he goes to Contender Series, and both his fights he got smoked. And he was a big favorite in this fight against Maki Pitolo, and he got just destroyed in that fight. So I can't trust him. I actually think Cotton's not a bad bet here, guys. I think Cotton's someone to take a look at. For me, I look at Cotton. I wish I got that minus 155 at the opener, but either way, I mean, to me, like I would rather play him than someone like Grant Neal, just because the line difference. And also because I feel like Sumpter's a guy you can fade a little bit here. He was really disappointing when he stepped up in competition, guys. And Cotton, I know he doesn't have a lot of experience, but I think he'll be able to control this fight. So that's my pick. And I'd love to see other people throw their picks and opinions in the comments too while I go through this card. That'd be cool to see. But yeah, I do like Cotton in that fight. So again, I'm picking the favorites here. But again, for me, of the three favorites that I've picked so far, Cotton is the one I'm more confident in. All right, next up, Kenney champion against Cody Law. And the odds right now, wow, crazy odds again. Okay, wow, this is nuts. Cody Law opened at minus 180. Kenney champion opened at plus 150. Right now, Cody Law is minus 750. Kenney champion's plus 525. I mean, that's crazy, man. Like, I don't get it. Every week it seems like in Bellator, these low favorites on the prelims get steamed to crazy numbers. So I don't know if the books just adjusted really heavily after some initial action or what, but to me, it's kind of nuts. All right, let's go to Kenney champion and Cody Law here. Cody Law, 1-0 as a pro. I think he just fought recently, right? Yeah, he just fought 2 months ago. I remember talking about him, and I think he was a massive favorite there, and he did win the fight, but I was saying, like, hey, this guy's no pro fights, be careful. He did win that fight. He looked amazing in that fight, getting a submission in the first round, but still a very improving guy. I mean, he's got a lot to like about him. He's American top team fighter, 25 years old. There's a lot to like, but again, that was his only pro fight. He did look good as an amateur, which we did talk about, I remember, when we broke down this fight, but to me, it's the exact same fight, like almost in a way. I don't know how you can bet on a guy at minus 750 here who's got one pro fight. To me, that just seems stupid. Like, I'd rather look for a different spot. And then look at his opponent here, Kenney champion, 2-0. So he's got 2 fights. Massachusetts-based fighter. Both of his wins by knockouts in Premier FC. But the guys he beat were terrible fighters, 5-19 and 1-3. So what does that tell you about it? I don't know. Again, I'm going to pick Law. I'm not going to go crazy and pick a massive dog, but there's no way I lay minus 750 on Law. That's crazy. That's crazy to me. There's no way. I definitely feel like I'm a little bit more selective than some people are when it comes to betting, just because I have a lot of experience doing this, and I've been burned so many times with these big favorites. But for me, it's like this is even a guy I would even look at. Minus 750 for a guy with one fight, no chance. He'll probably win the fight, but there's no way. And honestly, if champion goes in there and knocks him out, I mean, if you bet on Law, it's kind of like your own fault, in my opinion. But it is what it is. We'll see what happens. All right, next up, Robson Gracie Jr. against Billy Goff. And another crazy line. Robson Gracie Jr. opened at minus 600. Billy Goff opened at plus 425. Right now, the line's held pretty steady, minus 525 and plus 415, respectively. Again, he should win. You look at Robson Gracie Jr., 3-0, 31 years old, and he's won all 3 of his fights in Bellator by stoppage. But again, remember the other Gracie guy that lost a few weeks ago? He was like the same line, and it's nuts to me. You look at Billy Goff, 2-2. I mean, this seems like a tailor-made matchup. He's young, though. He's 22, so he can definitely improve. But you look at his record, and he's lost his last 2 fights, and he goes in there and fights one of their top prospects. Like, it's pretty clear what Bellator is doing here. I'm pretty confident Gracie gets the win in this fight, guys. Like, I wouldn't even touch Goff personally, but again, minus 7, or what is it? Minus 525. Like, I don't know. To me, it's just like, I don't like lines like this. They're just too high for me, I'm more of a guy that prefers to place a single bet than parlays. You can do parlays, but when it's like minus 500, minus 700, these guys, they're so unproven. You got to look for betting value too, and there's just no value. All right, next up, we'll go to the main card. I should mention, one fight did fall off at the weigh-ins, and that was the Goiti Yamauchi versus Nate Andrews fight. That would have been a good fight, and the odds for that closed at minus 345, plus 285 before it got taken off the odds. because Yamauchi missed weight by 6.8 pounds. Like, he missed weight bad, and Nate Andrews and his team said, we're not going to take the fight. I don't blame them. That's a big weight. That's almost 7 pounds, right? That's a different weight class. Yamauchi has to fight at welterweight now, according to Mike Mazzulli. So that's unfortunate because Yamauchi's good. I think he probably would have won that fight. It would have been a good fight, though. But, 6.8 pounds, you can't blame him for Nate Andrews for declining to fight him. Now, instead of that fight, we have this fight taking place on the main card. It's a heavyweight bout between Davion Franklin and Anthony Garrett. And right now, the odds for this fight, they opened as a pick'em, essentially. Minus 130 for Franklin, plus 100 for Garrett. And right now, I'm looking at the odds, minus 355 and plus 295. So once again, another line that got steamed up. I mean, again, it's a guy with 2 fights, and he's now a huge favorite. I don't know. Let's take a look at him. Davion Franklin all day, 2-0, 26 years old, Jackson Wink fighter. I mean, this guy's got some hype. He's got some promise. Two wins in Bellator, but I mean, like J.W. Kaiser, this guy is not good. 5-4 record, 41-year-old fighter. Like, he's not good. Remember Jake Hager destroyed him. Look at this. Ultimate Blue Corner Battle is one of the promotions he fought for. I mean, this guy's not great. Look how many losses he has. So that's not a good win by any means. And then Race Hilton is a little bit of a better win, 6-5 record, but still essentially a 500 fighter. So to me, it's like, yeah, there's some hype behind this dude, but he hasn't proven anything. He's beat 2 guys that are mediocre fighters. Anthony Garrett, 5-2 record. Lionheart, they call him. I guess he stole Anthony Smith's nickname. He better be tough like Smith is. You look at his record. Oh my God, yeah, he's 5-2. But look at his last win's also over J.W. Kaiser. This guy. Okay, this is like. I don't want to bash this dude. I mean, listen, like, the guy he's chasing his dream. He's a fighter in Bellator, so good for him. But this is the guy you call up when you want your prospect to get a win. This is the guy, J.W. Kaiser. His last 2 losses literally are to these guys. They were both fighting in different promotions too. So. This is a fight that Bellator, obviously, they want to build a new heavyweight prospect at, and they will, because someone's going to get finished in this fight. And he was looking at Anthony Garrett. I mean, listen, the 2 knockout losses stand out, especially this one. How quick it was in 19 seconds. But he does have finishing ability. We've seen that, striking and on the ground. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. Like, to me, again, the odds seem high. I know I keep saying that, guys, but it's like minus 355 on a guy with 2 fights who's beaten 2 guys that are really bad fighters. I don't know about that. I want to look at the weights for this fight too, because I know that it's a heavyweight fight and they came in at different weights. Check that out. So it was Franklin 264, Garrett 241. I'm sure that plays something into the line too. People probably think that Franklin's just going to be too big and strong, and he probably will be. But again, look at Garrett, 6'5", 80-inch reach. I mean, the guy's got physical tools, so you like that, but. 80-inch reach for Franklin, 262. I got to go with Franklin here, guys. I mean, it seems like they want him to win this fight, but, 2 fights, heavyweight bout, you never know. And I know I keep saying that, but again, I'm looking for some lines that are better. Like, these are all huge lines. I would have taken probably minus 180, though, at the opener, but the line's kind of high now. All right, next up, Linton Vassell against Ronnie Marks. This is an interesting fight, too, actually. This one could be interesting at the odds window. Minus 340 right now for Vassell, plus 280 for Marks. That's up from the opener. Again, oh my God, like, I don't know what's going on with these Bellator lines. Literally every line we've looked at today, guys, has been steamed by like a couple 100 cents. This is insane. A couple of dollars. This is crazy. Vassell went from minus 155 to minus 360. Marks opened at plus 125. He's plus 280 now. That's crazy. Like, this line got steamed again by double. Now, I will say that I think Vassell opened too low, minus 155, because you look at Vassell, and he's an older guy, 37, and he's kind of struggled a little bit in Bellator, but he is coming off a massive knockout win over Karatanov. That's a nice win, and we've seen him get some other good wins in Bellator, McGeary, Carmont, Newton, Sokoji. Like, he's been around Bellator for a while. He has lost a few times. This was a bad loss, this Phil Davis one where he got kicked in the head. But overall, I mean, this is a guy who's a decent fighter, man. He's been around for a while, so he's a guy that I like as a fighter. And at minus 155, that would have been tempting, but now at minus, again, 340, that's nuts. And you look at Marks. I'm not saying Marks is great, and he's got a lot of issues with his game, but there are some things like about him. He's a little bit younger, 5 years younger, and maybe at heavyweight he'll have some more success. This is a guy who's had a lot of issues cutting weight, a lot of canceled fights. You look at his career; it's been such a disappointment. Because I remember when he came in the UFC, like, you look at through his early resume, it was nice, man. he's a guy that had a lot of hype. And you look at some of the wins coming up. The Paulo Filo win got him in the UFC, and then he had some good wins. Like at the time, Vemola was an okay fighter. Simpson was a good wrestler. Craig was a decent prospect. He lost to Romero. He lost to Santos. He was a massive favorite against Thiago Santos, by the way. And then he got cut. They cut him, and he's kind of struggled since then. Went to WSOF, King of the Cage, M1, PFL. That's where he most recently was. He hasn't fought in a while because of kind of weight issues and other issues. Event canceled with coronavirus, that one. Barnett failed drug test. That's not his fault. Barnett not medically cleared. So not all of it's his fault, but he hasn't fought in a year and a half. Having said that, I think he's got a chance to win this fight, honestly. Like, Vasyl is a decent fighter. He is the better fighter, I think. He's the better mixed martial artist, so I will pick Vasyl here. But he's got problems with his chin. Marks has a little bit of power. He could finish him. And if the fight goes to the ground, Marks could go on top of him and possibly get a submission. I doubt it, but you never know. By the way, Ronnie Muxfart, Joe Ward in a grappling competition, that is like 100-pound plus weight difference. That's crazy. Yeah, I think Vasyl probably has got the job done, guys, but I wouldn't lay that juice, Marks at plus 280, if you're a dog better, could be worth a shot. I think I'll pass myself, but I think that line's a little nuts. Now, the next fight, I keep saying all these favorites are like not justified. I think the next guy might be justified because you look at Magomed Magomedov, and the line for this fight, it opened at minus 500 and plus 375. Now it's minus 350 plus 290. So of all the fights in the card, they all went like from minus 150 to like minus 550. This one actually went from minus 500 to minus 350. So the line went down, which is very surprising because I look at Magomedov and I wonder why this guy's not in the UFC. Like, this is a great prospect. 60-1 record, 20 years old. The only man to defeat Peter Yan. He beat him by decision. He did lose a decision in the rematch, but he beat him in 2016. He hasn't fought in 2 years, so that's a concern. But overall, I mean, this is a great prospect. This is a blue-chip prospect. And I'm surprised the UFC didn't sign this guy. I don't know why they passed on him because clearly he was a free agent for a while. Bellator got a good one, I think, guys. I mean, this guy's really good. He's been fighting as a pro for almost 10 years, tons of finishes. And again, one loss to Peter Yan in ACB, a 5-round fight, a decision. That's it. I mean, this guy's a legitimately elite prospect. So I love Magomed Magomedov. This is an amazing sign for Bellator. I think he'll do really well. Now, Matthias Matos, his opponent, is actually good too. I mean, he's a good fighter as well. 12-1 in one record. 20 years old. He's a Brazilian guy. Trains with the Pitbull brothers. So you gotta love that. Also, 2-year layoff. Also an ACB guy, which is funny. Also lost to Peter Yan in ACB. So that's kind of ironic. I mean, this guy, there's some stuff to like about him, no doubt about it. Again, he's been fighting as a pro for almost 10 years. He's got some nice wins. Not name value-wise, really, but some nice wins, like as far as the way he finished the fights. And, I mean, he's fought an Ultimate Fighter result. Look at this. He fought a couple guys in there. He did lose, but he did get that experience. So he's been around for a while. But, again, the 2-year layoff worries me. I just feel like Matos is a good prospect, and I'm surprised they're matching up with Magomedov because, to me, Magomedov's like Bellator's bantamweight division is actually really good. This is the guy that could be the champion, I think, in Magomedov. I like him, guys, in this fight. And the fact the line went down makes me like him even more. It opened at minus 500 and went down to minus 350. That's what I'm talking about, All these other fights, minus 180 to minus 900 for Grant Neal. Like, no thanks. I'm not gonna play that. But Magomedov to go from minus 500 to minus 350, that's encouraging. So this is a guy I'll probably end up playing in a parlay. It's tonight, so I'll have to figure out who to put him with. But I like Magomedov in this fight, guys. I do think he wins this fight. And I'll be honest, I think this is the guy who could be the champion in Bellator's bantamweight division. I'd love to see him fight Juan Archuleta or Patrick Mix or someone like that. But he's got to get through Matos first. I'm not saying it's like an easy fight because Matos is a good fighter. He's a good prospect. But I do think Magomedov wins. And I don't mind that line considering it's dropped 150 cents. Severe draw. Hey, how's it going, man? He says, Sumpter, Matos, and Marcus are pretty live and barking dogs worth the stab. Yeah, I'm with you in the fact that there's a lot of dogs here that are worth like a small play, like a punt. You can't go crazy. But in Magomedov, because I actually really like him in this fight, man. So that's what I like. But I'm with you. Marks could win for sure. And then Sumpter, you said, it's possible. But I kind of like Cotton in that fight too. But yeah, and Marks for sure I do like. All right. This fight's done. But yeah, man, I'm surprised. Like, to me, it's like a guy who's proven himself, who's beat Peter Yan, and his line goes way down. But guys who beat total bums on the regional scene get steamed up to minus 1,000. It just blows my mind sometimes, guys. All right, let's go to the main event. This is the best fight on the card on paper. It's going to be a good fight. I like this one. Ilima-Lei Macfarlane, Bellator Women's Flyweight Champion against Juliana Velasquez, undefeated title challenger. this is a great fight. I mean, this is an awesome one. And the line's crazy for this too. So Macfarlane opened at minus 200. Velasquez opened at plus 160. And the line right now is completely flipped. Minus 165 Velasquez, plus 145 Macfarlane. And I like the dog in this fight, guys. I don't really get the line movement in this one either. This whole card is confusing the hell out of me. Like, what's with this line movement? This is a close fight. Like, let's be honest here. They're both undefeated fighters. Both of them have not shown many flaws in their game. But Macfarlane's the champion. Macfarlane's the most proven fighter. She's fought better competition. She's been more active. I like Macfarlane. I love her as an underdog in this fight. I liked her as a favorite. I don't get this line. You know, the line right now says she's going to win what? Like 45% of the time or something like that. Like, I think she wins like 75% of the time. So to me, this is worth a play. You got to bet on Macfarlane as a dog. You have to. There's line value here. Even if she loses, I would still be comfortable with making the play. You know, I always think about that in mind. It's like, would I be okay if my bet lost? Yes. Because in this case, I think she opened as the favorite, rightfully at minus 200. That's where I think she should have been lined. The fact she's plus 145 is nuts to me. I mean, listen, the Kate Jackson fight was not that impressive, but it wasn't long ago they cut this girl's face up, Victor Argiaga, destroyed Valerie Letourneau, Adrian Lara. Like, she's finished a lot of her fights too. I like Macfarlane, man. How could you not like her? She's a great fighter. I think she'd do really well in the UFC too. Like, I think she is really good. Like, an elite 125er. Does she beat Valentina? Probably not. But I think she'd be more competitive than a lot of the fighters that Valentina's fought. So, I just like her a lot, man. I mean, her ground game's good. Her striking's good. She's got good personality. The layoff sucks. She hasn't fought in almost a year, which is definitely worrisome. But in general, I just think she's such a great fighter. She's so well-rounded. So as a dog here, defending her belt, I don't really get it. I'd love to hear people's thoughts on this fight because I don't understand line movement really. Velasquez is good. She's really good, 10-0. She's a little bit older, though, 34 years old. So, I mean, that's something that, to me, is a little bit of a knock against her. And you look at her resume, she hasn't fought in a year or two, same card, actually. She's got some okay wins. She has 5 fights in Bellator and a couple finishes. Essentially the same level of competition for the most part. I think Macfarlane's fought a little bit better, but her opponents haven't been too bad. Some actually common opponents like Lara. But to me, it's like, you know, she should be finishing people like Bruna Ellen. She can't finish them. If she can't finish Bruna Ellen, how's she going to finish Ilima-Lei Macfarlane? She'll have to win a decision in that case. And I'm assuming her game plan here is probably going to be used to wrestle Macfarlane, maybe try to strike her from distance, but I don't know about that. Like, I don't know. This one is – the line really confuses me. It's like that Vettori and Hermanson line, which I got caught speeding on that line last week because I picked Hermanson and obviously there was the square side. I mean, no doubt about it. It was. We saw how the fight went. But in this case, like, I can't pass on Macfarlane at plus 145. So I like Macfarlane a lot in this fight, guys. As a dog, you have to take a shot on her. I don't see any value in Velasquez as a favorite. I like Macfarlane. Give me plus 145 on the favorite. So that's it for Bellator 254. I mean, it's a pretty decent card. It's not great, but it's not bad either. I think it's the last card of the year. And then Scott Coker said yesterday that they want to come back in like late January. So Bellator will probably start announcing their next couple events soon. They might actually announce it tonight. I could see that happening. Now, let's talk about some news because we got a lot of news to talk about. And I will start with Bellator, actually. Why not? Let's start with Bellator, man. Because they made a huge signing yesterday when they signed former UFC light heavyweight title challenger Anthony Johnson. It's not loading up here. Where's Rumble? This is a huge signing. I mean, this came out of nowhere. I woke up yesterday. Literally, I woke up. Ariel Helwani tweeted at like 8 o'clock in the morning. Where is it? There it is. Anthony Johnson parts ways with the UFC, signs with Bellator. I mean, obviously a great sign for Bellator, just because Anthony Johnson is a guy that I love. I mean, I love Rumble. Like, how could you not love the guy? He's incredible. Rumble Johnson, man. I mean, he's the best. He's one of the best ever at 205, at 185, 170. This is a guy who fought at 170. I remember he fought Dan Hardy, just laid on top of them. But, you know, 36 years old. So it's not the same guy he once was. You know, he's a little bit older now, guy. He's 36. He hasn't fought in 4 years. Scott Coker said yesterday, he's like, he hasn't fought in what, 2 or 3 years? No, Scott, it's been almost 4 years. More like 4 years, not 2 or 3, more like 4. It's funny how promoters say stuff to like make them convince themselves of a point that's not true. In this case, like, the fact is he's 36. What does he have left? I don't really know. I mean, the last fight at DC, we all saw that fight. he turtled up and got choked out and retired right afterwards. He's been doing like, I think he's been working in the marijuana business for a little while now. Listen, I love Rumble, man. I mean, the guy, look at his resume. It's incredible. Like the amount of knockouts he has. I remember he knocked out Arlovsky. He had a huge bet on that fight back in 2013. Massive bet, WSOF. He was like minus 200, minus 250. I put like everything I had in that fight on him in that fight. He didn't knock him out, but he broke his jaw. And, the UFC picked him back up. And I remember when he turned into a light heavyweight after, some misses at, well, it's crazy. I fought at welterweight and middleweight, but remember this weight miss, 197 in 2012. That was a bad one. But, since he came back to the UFC, like the wins were incredible. Phil Davis, Little Nog, Gustafsson. This was a brutal knockout. And I remember that one too. I had a big bet on Gustafsson in that fight, and Rumble destroyed him. And it was like in the middle of the night in Sweden too. It was crazy. Anyways, Manoa, that was a nice win. Bader. Like, look at all the performance of the Knights. Glover, this was brutal, the Glover win. It's Rumble, guys. He's a beast. But again, these 2 losses to DC by submission, rear naked choke, that's his one kryptonite. 5 of his losses career by rear naked choke. So that's definitely kryptonite. I think though he'll be matched up really like favorably in Bellator. They'll find something for him to beat in his first fight. Hopefully he fights Ryan Bader in a rematch. I wouldn't mind seeing that fight. You guys remember that fight a few years ago? He knocked him out in the first round. Bader went for like a takedown and basically Rumble just started smashing him after that. He got KO'd. It'd be a different fight now. I think Bader's a better fighter. Now, the other thing about Rumble is Coker says he could fight at 205 and heavyweight, so 2 weight classes for him. But, I think he'll start at 205. That makes some sense. And again, guys like, Phil Davis, a rematch, Ryan Bader, a rematch. These are fights that could happen. Of course, the champion there, Nemkov, that's a fight as well. I think because he hasn't fought in 4 years, they'll probably give him kind of a layup type of fight in his first bout back. But, we'll see what happens there. I do like the signing. As far as the UFC cutting him, I mean, they didn't really cut him, right? He hasn't fought in 4 years. So to me, it's like they can't really include him as part of the 60 releases. If they do, it's good for the other fighters because it means one less fighter will be cut. But to me, he's not really part of that 60 group of guys like Romero, who was actually ranked because he hasn't fought in forever. Again, I like the signing. I'm a big Rumble Johnson fan, so I think he'll do really well in Bellator against lesser competition. But I'm curious to see who they match him up with. And I think, again, he'll start at 205, but heavyweight's a very real place for him. And there are some good fights for him in heavyweight too, guys. Like, don't laugh, but a fight like Fedor versus Rumble, that's a big fight for Bellator. That's one of the biggest fights they can make. A couple other guys there, like Rampage, I think he got cut, but that'd be a big fight too. So I know it's not the kind of guys that you want to be fighting Rumble because I'd rather see Rumble fight someone like, Anthony Smith versus Rumble. That'd be a good fight. Someone like that, Volkan Oezdemir versus Rumble. Those are the fights I'd rather see. But he's in Bellator. He's there now. And I wish him the best of luck, man, because I really do like Anthony Johnson. He's a great fighter, and I think he'll do decently well there. Now, the other guy, though, that wasn't signed, and we don't really know what's going on with this guy. It's just easier to search him up here. Yoel Romero, because, it seems like no one wants to sign this guy. I don't get it. Now, I'll talk about that in a second, but you look at this. Scott Coker explains why Bellator wasn't interested in Romero. I listened to the interview. Nolan King did it. Nolan King's great for Junkie. He just basically said, like, I looked at the roster. I really like the roster. I talked to the matchmakers. We decided to pass on Romero. We're not going to sign him, but we'll keep it in mind in the future. So they're not saying 100% no, but it's like the door's pretty much shut with like a slight crack open. It doesn't seem like it's going to happen anytime now, unless the thing is, it might be a money issue. If that's the case, that's different because if that's the case, just go and say it. Say, hey, listen, right now with the pandemic, like, I know they probably don't want to admit that publicly, but I think fans and media would respect that answer a little bit more than saying, we don't think he helps the roster, because that's fucking bullshit. How does Romero not help Bellator's roster? Romero's a beast, guys. Seriously, he's amazing. So these promotions saying this guy's not, good enough and basically he wouldn't make or improve our roster, make it better. That's such garbage. I know Romero lost 3 straight fights. I get that Adesanya fight was complete crap. It was a terrible fight. But he's still one of the best guys in the world, even at age 43. I think they're making a mistake. I think it's a big mistake by Bellator not to even pursue him. And whoever gets Romero is going to be lucky because he's a great fighter. He really is, man. And I know he probably come with a hefty price tag, but I think people would like to watch him fight. Now, the other guy would be BKFC, and Nicole interviewed David Feldman. He's their promoter there. They like him. They like Romero. And I think BKFC makes a lot of sense for Romero. Now, I was talking to my friend about it yesterday. He's like, he's like a hardcore MMA fan, but more he's like a casual hardcore. He's not like he's not media like me. He's just a friend of mine who really enjoys the sport and knows it. But he goes, why would he sign with bare knuckle, bro? He's like, he's a wrestler. And I'm like, yeah, he's a wrestler, but he has knuckle power. And bare knuckle's like, they're paying good money to guys right now. Like his buddy Hector Lombard was there. I think bare knuckle makes a lot of sense. Now, last night, another opportunity emerged potentially for Yoel Romero. And this one is hilarious. Combate Americas, they put it out there. They're interested in booking Tito Ortiz versus Yoel Romero. And the reaction to this was hilarious. A lot of people just saying it's a complete mismatch. And Tito Ortiz, obviously, a veteran of the sport, a pioneer of the sport. He's in politics right now. I don't even know if he wants to fight again. But as much as I initially laughed it off, I did look a little bit more into this fight just because I did the article. So I was like, all right, let me look it up. Tito, believe it or not, Tito Ortiz is only 2 years older than Romero, which shocked the hell out of me. He's 45 and Romero's 43. So he's only 2 years older, which shocked me. I couldn't believe that when I saw it. I thought he'd be way older. Only 2 year age difference, which is crazy. The other thing is Tito's actually won 3 straight fights. And, the wins were over great opposition. Chuck Liddell, the ghost of Chuck Liddell, Alberto Del Rio, and Kabachi, and what was the other win? I think Chael Sonnen, right? So not great wins. Guys that are kind of washed up and stuff, but he's on a 3-fight win streak. So it's not like he's on a 10-fight losing streak. That's why I could see this fight potentially happening if they paid Romero enough money. I think Romero wouldn't mind taking that payday to beat up Ortiz. The thing is, I think that Kabachi wouldn't want him for just one fight. They'd probably want him for multiple fights. But I don't think this would be a terrible marriage. I'm just not sure if this would be the right fight because I don't think Tito's going to take that fight. It'd be a really dangerous fight for Tito, at this point in his career. I think he's more into the political side of things right now, and I think his MMA career is on hiatus. I know he has, retired, come back a couple times in his career. I don't know if he will this time. So it's like an option, I guess, but maybe they could find someone else. Maybe they could sign another free agent. I think, considering it's like a Latin American-based promotion, Romero would not be the worst guy to have. So there's some intrigue there, but it's this whole Tito Ortiz Romero fight is kind of crazy. Let me get this comment from Saverdra because I missed it. He said that Juliana should win this with honor. She's savage on feet, black belt judo, black belt on the ground, great camp, super wrestler, all of her fights. You meant to say. She's good, bro, but I really like McFarlane, man. So we'll see what happens, man. It's gonna be either me or you, bro. Just kidding. Let's go through some news here, guys. Why not, right? So Matt Wiman, he announced his retirement, but he was cut the other day by the UFC. They cut 5 guys. The guys they cut are not good. Saparbek Safarov, Matt Wiman, Luis Eduardo Garagori. They're guys that are on losing skids and stuff like that. So no surprises on the cuts. You'll see some more surprising cuts soon, but Matt Wiman, you gotta love the guy. Great career, but 100%. You need. I'm glad he retired. It would have been nice if he retired before they cut him, but either way, he's done with MMA, and he actually had a 10-8 record in the UFC. So you look at that last loss, he got KO'd by Levitt in just devastating fashion. But overall, he had a 10-8 record in his career, and he won 6 bonuses in his career. So Matt Wiman did pretty good, I think. Congratulations, Matt Wiman, on a really good career. A career that started in the UFC with a flying knee knockout loss to Spencer Fisher in 2006. 14 years later, ends up retiring after a 10-8 run in the UFC. That's not bad. Vittori's pissed off at the rankings, and I don't blame him. It is stupid. What did Till do to deserve being number 4 in the rankings? I don't get it. He has the win over, Kelvin? So why is he ranked number 4? Because he had a close fight with Whitaker? He lost. I don't get it. Till was a good fighter, but I don't know, man. That's a little surprising to me. Vittori should be ranked above him. Vittori should probably be the number 4 guy right now. He should have just taken Hermanson's spot. I'm a little confused by that, but don't like arguing with the rankings too much. Let's see here. Henry Cejudo and Garbrandt were going back and forth. I think Triple C's coming back for sure. It seems like him and Figueiredo want to fight. So, Figueiredo goes out there and beats Moreno this weekend. Maybe he calls out Cejudo. It seems like he said he wanted to beat the crap out of him, right? So that'd be, you talk about the best flyweight fight you can make. There's no doubt it'd be Henry Cejudo versus Figueiredo. I'd rather see that than Garbrandt. I think Garbrandt should get a win in that division first, to be honest with you. He knocked out a Sunset. It was a nice knockout, but before that, lost 3 straight fights. Never won at 125. Never made that weight. Cole interviewed JDS. He said he's not worried about being cut, but you know what? He probably should be. Because as much as I love JDS, he makes a lot of money. He's on 3-fight skid. He's been knocked out in 3 straight fights. He goes in there and gets KO'd by Khan. He could be cut. And if he gets cut, don't be surprised if he gets cut, guys. Don't be like, oh, this is terrible. The UFC screwed me as a former champion. It's just part of the sport, man. You cycle through the fighters. You're always looking for the best guy. Right now, JDS is not the best heavyweight. He is top 10 in the world, so we'll give him that. He's a guy I love. He's a Hall of Famer for sure. Got a lot of respect for JDS. But if he loses, I think he'll be cut personally because of the salary. And Dana White said the other day to Junkie, he's like, it's nothing. The cuts are not money related. They're not financially motivated. They have everything to do with guys. Too many guys on the roster and just their records and stuff like that. It has nothing to do with money. I don't really believe that for a second. Dana thinks we're all dumb and stuff. Come on, Dana. That's BS. I can't wait for this fight, Ferguson Oliveira. Let's go down through a little bit more. I mean, McGregor, my God, he looked good. He looks great, but I think Poirier still got a chance in that fight. I don't think it's as big of a mismatch as the odds are saying. Clarissa Shields told MMA fans to bow down. Tom Taylor at BJ Penn actually did an interview with her for Bleacher Report, and she basically said, like, if you don't know who I am, you will, and you'll bow down to me and stuff. I'll be honest, based on the traffic numbers, no one seems to care about Clarissa Shields in the MMA world right now. Traffic is not good for her articles. Like, even the one where she got signed, I don't think people really know who she is in MMA. Even someone like me who's worked in the business for a long time, like, I'm not super familiar with Clarissa Shields other than her being a boxer. I know she's a great boxer, but again, she's so unproven in MMA. She's done nothing. So I like the cockiness. I don't mind that. I think that's good. John he's bashing her, but I don't mind the cockiness, man. I'm pretty sure Connor's told people that too. So I don't know about that, but yeah, I mean, she'll do well in PFL. That's a good place for her to start because she'll fight some low-level competition. But she says like stuff like this, so people will read what she says. So they can either love her or hate her. I mean, that'd be a great fight. I love that Figueiredo and Cejudo fight. That's funny. Yeah, Ostovich got cut too. Anyways, that's going to be it for the cuts I had down there. Okay, that's it for news. Let's go to some fight announcements. Actually, wait. I got to talk about this card first, UFC 256, because we did have an extra fight come in. I forgot to break this down. Me and Cole, it broke like an hour after me and Cole finished the podcast on Tuesday, so let's do this one. Sam Hughes against Tecia Torres. Also, I should mention Dwight Grant and Li Jingliang. That fight's off the card. They couldn't find an opponent for Li Jingliang, unfortunately. So probably rebook for 2021. All right, so this is the new fight in the card, and right now the odds between these two. It opened at Torres minus 450, Hughes plus 350, and right now it's minus 45 plus 350. So just more juice on Tecia Torres. And by all counts and purposes, she should win this fight. This is kind of an easy fight for her. Tecia Torres, tiny tornado. We know her. She's been around the UFC for a long time. She had the 4-fight losing skate, but you look closer, the losses were not that bad. They were all to like elite, like championship level fighters. So she gets a win in her last fight against Van Buren as an underdog. Nice win there. And now she takes on Hughes. She was supposed to take on Angela Hill. That would have been a much more competitive fight. This fight, I mean, listen, Hughes is not a bad signing, 5-1. I don't like her nickname though, Sandpage. It's kind of lame. It's dumb nickname. 28 years old. She's coming off a nice win in her last fight against Danielle Hindley by guillotine choke. Literally choked her out the bell. It was a nasty choke. But 2 fights ago, got submitted by Vanessa Demopoulos, and we saw her in Contender Series, and she just got basically grinded out by Corey McKenna, and she's not that great. And she actually lost her last fight too against Lupita Godinez. So to me, like that was 2 fights ago. That's a little concerning. And I know it was a submission, and Torres is more of a striking-based fighter, but still, losing to someone like Demopoulos, who I don't think is that great, is an issue. And look at her other wins: 0-0, 0-0, 0-0. She's been a pro for 2 years. I mean, good for this girl, man. She made it to the UFC in a short amount of time, so good for her. There must be something here, and that choke was nasty. But to me, this is a mismatch. Tecia Torres who wins. I'll take her by decision, though. That's how she wins most of her fights. Tecia Torres by decision. And we don't have a prop on that, unfortunately, but that's probably how she wins that fight, guys, if I had to be asked. Now, let's do some fight outs before I get out of here. Go to Marcel's page. This guy always kills it. I've already talked about this fight, Chris Weidman and Uriah Hall, I think, a few weeks ago. I like the fight. It's a rematch. They fought back in, Ring of Combat back in 2010, I think, and Weidman knocked out Hall. And obviously Weidman went on to become a UFC champion. Hall kind of struggled. Now it's like the opposite a little bit. Weidman's actually struggling, and Hall's looking a little better lately. So interesting fights. Don't know if the odds are out. I don't think they are, but It's an interesting fight. Honestly, I think Hall should be favored here. Even though he got knocked out the first time these guys fought, it's very hard to trust Chris Weidman with that chin at this point in his career. So I think Hall should be favored in that fight. This fight, you talk about loser leaves town. I mean, this is probably going to be one of those fights. John Castaneda against Eddie Wineland. Eddie Wineland coming off an absolutely just brutal loss to Sean O'Malley. Just got starched in that fight. Veteran of the sport. I mean, listen, the guy's got some nice wins, great knockouts over his career. I love the guy, Eddie Wineland. Great mustache. Been in the UFC for 10 years, man. So credit to this dude. But, at this point in his career, I don't know how much he has left. And Castaneda, he did lose his UFC debut to Nathaniel Wood, but it was a really good fight. And, he's a lot younger, obviously. You look at the age difference, 7-year age difference. And, he's got a lot of experience. So I actually think that the odds will be close, but I kind of like Castaneda in that one. Again, fight's 2 months away? Got time to think about it, but that'd be my lean right now. This fight, Yoel Romero against Ray Rodriguez. Again, loser leaves town in this fight. There's a lot of these fights that are going to come up. Almost every fight now that Dana said they're cutting 60 guys, I'm like, all right, the loser of this fight is being released. Now, in this case, Yoel Romero, he's kind of struggled in the UFC. He's got a couple losses. He did beat Ali Akiasi, but I think overall he's 1-2 in the UFC, if I'm not mistaken. And then, 1-2. And then Ray Rodriguez, he got knocked out, I think in his one fight, right? Or did he lose the decision? I can't remember what it was. I'll check that again. Ray Rodriguez, the judge, didn't he get finished? Kelleher choked him. It was a chokeout in the first round. So it's a guy who got a lot of experience, but, I still feel like Rivera with the more UFC experience and more success in the UFC probably should be favored here. It's a close fight, though, but I think the loser gets cut. This fight we just talked about, I love this fight. Adrian Yanez against Gustavo Lopez. I love this fight. Yanez has looked incredible. In Contender Series UFC, looked great. That last fight, I think it was this guy, right? Victor Rodriguez KO'd him. Brutal fashion, the head kick. It was so nasty. He's good, man. Like him. But I like Lopez, too. He looked great against Anthony Burchak. Finished him. He was an underdog, I think, in that fight. This is definitely another competitive fight, but because I think Lopez is underrated, but I like Yanez a lot, and I think he'll be favored in this fight. Just don't count out Lopez completely. He's not bad. David Zawada against Ramazan Ameev, not a bad fight either. Zawada 1-2 in the UFC, Ameev 4-1. Zawada's had some nice fights, exciting fights, but Ameev, even though he's the more boring fighter of the two, he's just more well-rounded and a little bit more successful at this level of the sport. I would favor Ameev, although he hasn't had a fight in a while. I think his last fight against Anthony Rocco Martin was in Russia last year when Rocco started crying afterwards because his mom was dying, I think. That was a year ago, so it's been a while. This fight's interesting. Omari Akhmedov against Tom Breese. Tom Breese is going to get a chance to break into the rankings against number 12, Akhmedov, who is 7-4-1 in the UFC, and Breese 5-2. Akhmedov has had more success in the UFC. He has probably better wins on paper. Alisson, Cummings, Heinrich, good wins, but he's a little bit older, obviously, than Breese, 4 years older. Breese, last fight, man, that was a devastating knockout win over Katie Buller. Knocks him out with a jab. So I know that was a guy that was making his debut and everything, but it was a beautiful knockout win. This is a close one too, but and I wouldn't be surprised if the odds are really close, or even if Akhmedov could be favored potentially. But Breese, there's a lot to like about him. He's a big guy. If he's there mentally, he should win this fight. We talked about this one in the past too, Gastelum and Heinrich. I like this fight. This was announced a few weeks ago. I think Gastelum probably be favored, but Heinrich is no slouch. Good fight. I like the matchup. This one's interesting. Shayna Dobson coming off that win over Agapova against Casey O'Neill. She's making her debut. She's really young. Wow, 97, so 23 years old. Don't know a ton about her. She's got 5 wins in her career and no losses. Dobson, listen, man, you got to give her credit that last fight. She was getting her ass kicked, came back and won in devastating fashion against someone who was minus 1,000. So you got to give her credit. Biggest upset in UFC history. So I'll give her credit, but I'm still going to fade her probably against anyone going forward who has a pulse. I'm still convinced she's great, and I think that O'Neill could be someone special in this division. I gotta look at her a little bit more, but right now it'd be my lean. But I gotta give Dobson credit, man. All the credit in the world for that upset. I'm not convinced that she's really has truly turned the page. I think that was more about Agapova completely gassing out in that fight than Dobson being this incredible fighter now. This fight I did talk about a little bit the other day. It's going to take place next week. Robertson and Santos. I think we have odds for that. Let me take a look here. Odds. Yeah, minus 120, plus 100 for Robertson. So slightly towards the Canadian. Close fight there. That was rebooked as well. Cody Durden, man, he got pink eye, poor guy. Jimmy Flick. I think he'll probably be a small favorite still. And then this was one fight that was announced last week and I haven't had a chance to talk about. I absolutely love this fight too. This is a great fight. Dominick Cruz, he is coming off the loss to Cejudo, hasn't fought since May. And it actually almost a year between fights. Like, he doesn't fight much. That's the problem. But we all know Cruz is a legend, and he's a student of the game. He's always in great shape. There's a lot to like about Dominick Cruz. I mean, he's a former champion for a reason. He is one of the best bantamweights of all time. He'll be in the Hall of Fame one day, I'm sure. They love him at the UFC. But I'm extremely high on Casey Kenney. And that last fight with Wood was a beautiful fight. And the wins, look at these other wins. Royval, Borg, like, he's got great wins, man. He's been nothing but impressive. I love Casey Kenney. This is a huge step up against a former champion in Cruz. No doubt about it. But it just shows the UFC likes this guy, man. To me, it's like the fact they're putting against Dominick Cruz, they're saying, go for it. Let's see how good you really are, Casey. And I think this could be his coming out party, man. Like, I really think this kid could be the next TJ Dillashaw, and with his striking attack, with his grappling. Just hopefully he doesn't start taking PEDs like TJ did. But man, I like this kid a lot. As far as the odds go, it's hard to speculate on this one because I think people will fade Cruz, the layoff and everything like that. But I still feel he'll get some respect because he's Dominick Cruz. So the odds should be close, but I like Kenney. I wouldn't be surprised if Kenney is favored, actually. Here's another fight. Julian Marquez against Makitolo. This guy, Marquez, hasn't fought in forever. He just had a fight canceled a few weeks ago. But you got to love him. And then Bitolo struggled really bad in the UFC 1 and 3. I'm surprised they're giving him another shot. But you know what? To be fair, this guy, he's always answering the call and taking fights when the UFC asks. You got to go with Marquez, I think, as the favorite there in that fight. I think that'll be it. Oh, yeah, and this one, the last one to talk about. Jerome Rivera against Francisco Figueiredo. If you recognize the last name, there's a reason for that. It's because it's Davidson's brother, Francisco. And man, this guy is he's nasty, man. He's been fighting as a pro for almost 10 years and coming to the UFC on a little bit of an unbeaten streak. So I'm excited to see him in the UFC. I don't know if he's as good as his brother. I mean, if he was, he'd be the champion right now. But I'm excited to see him. And then Rivera, he had a fight contender series, and he's in the UFC now. I'm not sure what to expect from him in this fight. This is an interesting fight. It's probably the classic, just watch and not bet kind of fight. But, just based on the last name, I would figure Figueiredo would probably be favored in that fight. Got a few minutes left. Anyone has any questions, throw them out there. I'll answer them right now. Going to see if I missed anything. Let's see here. I mean, I think I've talked about everything I want to. Let me plug some of my stuff here. Odds.com. I did an article, and you guys are going to laugh, but Jake Paul, whose next fight's going to be. You can laugh. It's okay. I'm going to laugh too, but, I mean, listen, man. Oh, let's watch this. Oh, this was just, wow. That was just so brutal. That poor guy. Look at Nate. Oh, man, that was so brutal, guys. Anyways, there's odds on him and who he could fight next. Dylan Dennis is the favorite. Like, he's an underdog, but he's the favorite compared to the other fighters at plus 150. I just don't see that fight happening just because Dylan, he's in Bellator. I don't think Bellator would let him out of his deal to fight Jake unless it was on DAZN and Bellator got to cut the money. But I still don't think that Dennis is that big name that he thinks he is. I know he's got a lot of followers and stuff, but I don't know, man. This guy he doesn't really do it for me, guys. Dylan Dennis. When he has fought in MMA, he's looked good. He has 2 fights in MMA. He hasn't fought in a year and a half now. He doesn't fight. He's a guy who's always on Twitter talking smack. Seems like a keyboard warrior. He does have 2 fights, so you got to give him that, I guess. But he barely fights. So I just don't see that fight happening. To me, there's no value. Like I said here, I would say he's like a 10% chance of getting that fight, not 40% like the odds are indicating. Now, this one, I like this one, KSI plus 180, because the books are giving about a 35% chance, but I think it's a 50-50 chance. I think he either fights KSI or he fights someone else. So, if you're a guy, someone who likes futures, this is someone to take a look at plus 180 KSI, because I do think he'll probably be fighting Jake next, considering he just didn't knock his brother, he wanted a split decision. But he's obviously fought Logan twice, once in a white collar match and then once in a pro match. I think Jake makes sense. And I think Jake would be favored if they had that fight. We've seen Jake and his knockout power. I don't mind this fight. I mean, listen, it's not everyone's cup of tea, guys. I get that people don't love this, but I'll be honest, it's giving me a reason to tune back into boxing because other than the big names, I'm not a boxing like aficionado by any means, and I'll watch the big fights. I always do. Or guys that, someone's like, hey, this is a great prospect, watch him. I'll watch that stuff. But in general, I feel like these YouTubers, as much as people like to laugh at it, they're bringing faces back, bringing name value back to boxing, bringing money back to boxing. Listen, Mike Tyson was the one who was like, these are the guys that we should be thanking. If Mike Tyson says that, I can say it too. So no problem with me saying that. And I feel like this would be a good bet, though. The other one, Conor McGregor, plus 1,400. And again, the odds are saying he's about a 7% chance of getting this fight with Paul. But I think the percentage should be lower, like 1%. I couldn't see this happening anytime soon. I'm not saying this would never happen. I do think Jake Paul could eventually fight Conor McGregor in boxing, but not anytime soon. It would happen like a few years down the road, and probably when Conor's not with the UFC any longer. Somehow he retires or he gets out of his deal. But in general, or the UFC, like they take a cut of it like they did with the Floyd fight and be a co-promoter. So it's possible down the road, but it's not going to be his next fight. That's the value right there. The other article was Mike Tyson. I also did one for him. What are the odds on who his next opponent's going to be? Mike and Roy. I mean, look, for a guy who's 54, he didn't look too bad. He's in way better shape than I am. So, credit to Mike, man. He looked pretty sharp. I think Roy had a really poor performance in that fight. I know it was a draw, but I think we all thought Mike Tyson should have won. But he looked pretty good. He looked sharp. Now, we could bet on who he's going to fight next. And it's got to be Holyfield, right? Like, and right now, minus 150. That's if your book offers this bet, I would take this bet at minus 150 because it should be like minus 400 or something like that. Because to me, he's a much bigger favorite to be the next fighter who's going to step in there with Tyson. Holyfield's called him out. Tyson's called Holyfield out. They obviously have history. They fought twice. We know what happened with the ear-biting incident 23 years ago, 1997. And I think 23 years later, we might see it, 24 years later, actually, next year, we might see this fight. So there's value here, minus 150. If you're a prop better of futures and stuff like that, this would be something that I definitely would take a shot on because I don't really see another matchup for it. I said 80%. The more I think about it, it's probably like 90%. Now, another opponent, this one is a slight possibility just because, listen, Lennox Lewis is, first off, he's an incredible fighter too, man. Isn't fought in a while, 2003. He actually hasn't fought even longer than Tyson. So, that actually could work in his favor in getting this fight. And Holyfield also hasn't fought in forever as well. But I still feel like generally fans, media, and the fighters themselves, they seem to be more interested in Tyson Holyfield. I do think Lewis has a shot at being the opponent, though. So I said here the odds are saying 25%. That's too high. I said 10%. It's probably a little bit lower than that, like I said, now that I think about it, especially now that I wrote this article a couple of days ago. More articles have come out now about Holyfield saying that they're close to getting this fight book. So I think it's more like 90%. So I'd probably put Lewis about 5%. So I wouldn't touch this myself. But, he's got a chance. There's an outside chance it could be Lewis. The one guy who won't be is going to be Anthony Joshua. There's no way this fight's happening. The fact they put these odds out is crazy, plus 5,000. Yeah, I mean, I'd rather bet on Logan Paul beating Floyd Mayweather than be betting on this. This isn't happening. I even said right here, he's a huge long shot. The odds are saying 2% chance of being his opponent. I think it's 1%, less than 1, so there's no value there. And then I had one more on Canelo Alvarez and one on Figueiredo. So read that. 2 reasons why I think Davis and Figueiredo will beat Brandon Moreno. Spoiler alert, I do think he probably wins that fight. Anyways, that's going to be it for today's show, guys. Got to an hour and pretty much talked out. So I appreciate everyone who did tune in today for the podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed Bellator 254 tonight, Thursday night. Again, Cage Warriors, and we talked about the start time, 3 p.m. Eastern on Fight Pass. That's today, tomorrow, and on Saturday. So 3 Cage Warriors events, Bellator event, UFC event. There's going to be a lot to talk about next week. I can't wait. But, the sad thing is we're almost done 2020 in MMA. We got this card this week for UFC guys, and then next week, the Kamaev it's not Kamaev and Edwards anymore. I shouldn't say that. The Neal and Thompson card, that's the last card of the year. And I do think we have a Rising card on New Year's, I believe. So there's going to be that too. But next week basically is it. As far as the podcast goes, I'll still be doing the podcast twice a week. I'll just talk about news and fight announcements and stuff like that. And I'm sure they'll make a lot of news over the holidays as far as future fights and stuff goes. So check that out. But in the meantime, you guys can follow me on Twitter at MMAOB, podcast, MMAOddsbreaker.com, YouTube channel, as you guys know. Subscribe, hit that button, like, share, tell your friends about it, guys. The more the merrier, I think, in the podcast. So appreciate that. And then where else am I? DJPen.com, MMARings.net, odds.com. Have a great weekend, everyone. Enjoy all the fights, guys. And I'll be back on Tuesday morning with Cole to break down the next UFC card. See ya. Bye.